Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Beat Podcast, brought to you by Health. I'm so excited to be talking with the outstanding Patrick Schinzel. He's the Chief Operating Officer at Strive Compounding Pharmacy. Patrick, such a pleasure that we could have you join us today.
Thanks, Sal. Looking forward to it.
Likewise. Hey, look, man, tell me just to kick things off, how did health go for you? We're obviously recording this a bit after the meeting, but talk to me about the health experience.
For me, health was my first time actually being there. So it was eye-opening. I've been heavily involved on the software side of our business, trying to figure out how to optimize software to obviously impact our speed, efficiencies, deliverables, and working hard on that over the last 4 years. And so it was mind-blowing, like the statement, software is eating the world. You saw how many people are obviously making their angled approach to try to improve healthcare. So it was really, it was inspiring and it was jaw-dropping to see everybody's take on how they can impact healthcare. And so for me, it was really absolutely eye-opening experience.
That's awesome, man. Glad to hear that. When you're in that room with other people that are playing at your level, making big moves, it's definitely inspiring and the energy is pretty high. So I'm right there with you. Cool, man. So look, let's kick this thing off. Talk to us about Strive and Compounding Pharmacy and what you guys do, just to level set with everyone.
Yeah, awesome. Strive Pharmacy, we were founded 2018 by Mike Walker, pharmacist, and his buddy, Nathan Hill. Nate was in the pharmaceutical sales realm and also a good just business mind. So they kicked off Strive Pharmacy in Gilbert, Arizona, started in a small initial 3,000 square foot suite. And they went to work on personalized medicine, basically whatever I always would say. They would take any prescriptive, personalized RX, and no matter if it was in their business strike zone or out of it, and they would make that med on a personalized basis for individualized patients to obviously drive best outcomes. And they started looking into how to serve the local community down in Gilbert, Arizona. And slowly, obviously, we, I think, hit the right time in the market where there was a lot of awesome potentiality that was stacking. And we did a good job of looking at supporting precision medicine and also considering efficiencies, supply chain efficiencies, technology efficiencies, business efficiencies that would ultimately allow us to scale and to reach greater amount of patients on, I think, world-class timelines. Our model is compounding precision medicine, and we do that all across the nation in a network of 8 nodal pharmacies. We kind of have our headquarters here out in Gilbert, Arizona, and then we have a number of production sites across America that help just our reach and our sales teams obviously connecting with local providers and us being able to reach patients all across the United States.
Well, that's fantastic, man. I love the work you guys do. In the end, one size fails all. And if you could really contribute the way you guys have, you make a huge difference. And on the difference point, let's highlight around reimagining care delivery to improve both access and outcomes. Talk to us about that from your perspective, and especially around the focus of historically underserved population.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's a challenging one. I was a retail pharmacist for quite some time with Walgreens. In compounding, it was tough from the adjudication standpoint, right? There's nuance to the medicines, both combining varied active ingredients at varied concentrations that obviously impact the cost of goods and the complexity of the individual product on a timeline basis. I think there is a tough bridge from the standpoint of figuring out how to build those products, get appropriately reimbursed, and the payers wanting to pay for it. So I've seen a huge transition into patient pay models where it's a cash-based business. And I think Strive's done a really awesome job over time finding the right product market fit on delivering these very tailored meds. A lot of times I always say customized typically means extra cost, but I think we've done a really awesome job on figuring out how to make these be affordable to a grand segment of the population. I think there's probably still some work to do in regards to probably the most underserved communities where they need Medicare and Medicaid to help with that payment ultimately, where they would they would only need to make a payment for the copay as an example. But I think Strive's done a pretty awesome job over the years, trying to really consider how products can fit in the marketplace from a pricing standpoint. So we've done a pretty awesome job on that. And I think that's a testament to just how much business we're doing. If ultimately we were pricing these out of the market, I think unfortunately there would be less engagement. And so Strive's done an awesome job on trying to be fair to the patients, deliver awesome outcomes, but also build a very awesome business that's scalable and doing well and growing fast.
No, that's great, Patrick. Yeah, the affordability piece is a huge piece around access and affordability. And yeah, from my perspective, that we're paying so much as individuals already that when you give a cash pay option that could sometimes even be less than what you would pay as a copay, like you guys are doing a good job in that perspective. So really appreciate that. You're a COO, right? You wear the operations hat. How can operations teams enable clinical leadership to adopt and scale new therapeutic models without compromising quality or consistency?
I think this might be best illuminated, Sal, through an example of something we'd uncovered over time by really looking at data analytics. We have a very particular product that I think is like really cool combination to enhance men's testosterone. And what we ended up doing is we really open that up for any combination of these 5 ingredients with any strengths to be from a precision medicine standpoint. The doctors were able to, without any sort of handcuffs, right? They could write this in any combination they wanted. But after we went back and we did a data evaluation over years and years of ingesting these particular prescriptions, what we noticed is there were 5 particular products, 5 SKUs baked within the combination where we didn't put any reins on the doctor's clinical therapeutic application, right? We didn't tell them, hey, you need to go in this direction. But what we noticed hey, there was a common theme. And we obviously do business all across the United States. So no matter the doctor, where they were at, they were typically writing the prescriptions for 5 of the product lines within the 370 variations that we ultimately produced. So what we did is we went down with our clinical teams and we showed them the data. That creates operational efficiencies. It creates faster deliverabilities to the patients themselves. So they got greater predictability there. Also, we could even lower that price because we were getting bulk efficiencies in regards to the compounding efficiencies that come with more bulk production. But really it was with greater therapeutic application also. We didn't tell the doctors what they needed to do. But over time, with evaluating the data, we actually could figure out the 5 products in the varied formats that had the greatest therapeutical application. And what we did is we just helped the doctors because we underscored those products, and it's only driven, I think, greater outcomes, more predictability, better cost to patients. So I think that's how operations can align to clinical outcomes. I hope that was a decent example that shows how operations is hopefully enhancing clinical outcomes through data, through efficiencies, through better pricing.
Yeah, no, I love that example, Patrick. And I'm just curious, what do you think? What gravitated these orders to be really like those top 5 medications? Was there a paper out there that was guiding people, like physicians or anything like that? Or did they just somehow all land on a similar combination of ingredients?
Great question. I think we started out with a particular product in a particular combination, but we didn't put any rails on it. We didn't put any guidelines on it. We didn't say you had to stay within those parameters. And ultimately doctors, they would just enhance. They would take out a particular product. They'd bump up a strength. They would manipulate it to whatever they felt really fit best for that individual patient. But after time, we never forced them to use a particular product. We gave them, I think, an initial particular combo. And I think a lot of pharmacies, there's a lot of players in this space. There's 7,500 different compounding pharmacies nationally. And there's not many large institutional enterprise scaler players in the compounding space. The nuance of the industry itself makes it challenging to scale. But I think a lot of people are watching each other and watching the compounds that are produced. So there might be some funneling there. But what I really thought was illuminating was going back and studying this, where we weren't driving this with sales. We weren't driving this with clinical pharmacists, but the data was the data after 4 years of compounding this product to show that 5 of these lines were the most common used. And that allowed us to then really offer that as the more preferred lines within that particular product SKU. And then at that point, I think it just created better outcomes for how we could show up for the patients and show up for the providers.
No, that's really cool, Patrick. I love that context. So we're talking about data, right? And in this example, definitely it played a role in sort of standardization. Talk to us about that role of data in validating a precision model and how it should evolve, and should it evolve to a preferred or standard process across provider network?
Yeah, great question. We're always evaluating the data of our business. And I think one of them, one of the places that we first started was with our sterile lines, the lines that they've been highly pursued over the last 4 years with the GLP-1s. But with that, there comes a risk. And so the first way we really looked at that was we obviously have to send these out for third-party testing, but we wanted to get in front of elements that weren't required by USP for us to test. And our chief clinical and compliance officer, back in the original tenets of pharmaceutical manufacturing, you have to make sure the medications are safe and effective. So ultimately, the effective side, there's a lot of testing in regards on the aseptic side of the business to ultimately make sure the products are safe. But we wanted to make sure our data ensured effectiveness also. So we wanted to ensure potency. So with those particular product lines, we started to study and ensure potency to make sure like clinical outcomes were reached. And that wasn't an endpoint that was required at that time by the governing bodies of that really look and regulate our models. That was one way that we've tried to enhance, how we're looking at our data to ensure our clinical outcomes. Now, how that relates specifically from us going from a precision model to a preferred model, I think, a lot of people are looking at to reach scale. Scale, a lot of times business end up pulling out variabilities. Variabilities become the troubling elements of business to really like refine it to the point that you can reach the masses. And I think that's what the traditional pharmaceutical manufacturers do. They build very specific products and they do them in, I always say, lots of tons, right? It's bulk production and they're hoping for application across a wide swath of the patient population. Compounding's on the opposite side of that. But the truth is, their formulary approach where they're really making a product-centric approach of driving product into the marketplace. Personalization does the opposite of that, but I got to call it for what it is. There are efficiencies in looking at precision and trying to understand, like as the example I raised with the test booster, how can you get bulk efficiencies and then switching that precision into preferred SKUs that allow the efficiencies to surface. And I think those deliverabilities with those efficiencies, they obviously can impact the deliverabilities or the cost of those particular products. I see some evolvement though of like where the space is going to go over time. I think, there are businesses that are attacking the formulary based approach in compounding. And what I tried to illuminate on stage when I talked about scaling personalized medicine while I was at the health conference, I said that right now, earnestly believe, because there hasn't been many organizations that have reached enterprise scale on the compounding side of the business. Like nobody really has a household name. Strive is becoming one of those household names. There's a couple other big players out there that have hit national scale, but people do understand the mom and pop shop that's around the corner from their house that might be able to do compounding. But what happened is that mom and pop shop has never actually hit scale or enterprise level growth. So enterprise solutions haven't been necessitated by the model itself, if that makes sense. So I think as people are, considering preferred products, right? I think that's allowing people to grow at a little bit more of an exponential rate. And I think there's going to be involvement in the technologies that support that model. But I really see where I think the model is going to go is software is going to get enhanced. But because compounding is a little bit of been a smaller business play, the software really hasn't set us up for enterprise level requirements on the software side. So I think ultimately the growth of the model will force the maturity of the software itself. And then when the software ultimately matures, then you get to move into the robotics that can get back into supporting the nuance or personalization at scale. So if that's my call over the next 3, 5, 10 years, I do believe software maturity will allow the interface for the new evolvement on the robotics side of the business that ends up allowing the incorporation of, I tried to illuminate this example. There's lots to talk about when you're getting pressed with 500 eyes trying to come up with your answers on stage. I don't know if I got to this specifically, but I was out at Interfax, a large pharmaceutical manufacturing conference earlier this spring, and I was talking to a particular company that does flexible conveyance lines. And I walked up and I talked to him and he said, "Oh, you're one of those lot size of one guys, huh?" And I smiled. He was a brilliant product engineer. working for this particular company? And I said, I am, because I think that's where ultimately the space evolves to, is lot size of one. It's going to move through, I think, some of the efficiencies that are being explored right now with really unique combos that can have some bulk efficiencies. But ultimately over time, I think it really does flow back into lot size of one when the software enhances and the robotics enhance to really allow the deliverabilities of hyper personalized products at scale.
Yeah, man. No, I love how you're thinking about this, and the market has definitely evolved. It's shifting. There's multiple segments now. So there's individuals and there's the companies that are requiring the enterprise layer, the massive distributors like Hims and others that we could talk about. And then the software to remove variability where it goes in order to get that lot size of one to become actually more real, I think is exciting. Love your perspective on that one, Patrick.
Yeah, and I think so. Like one thing, just for a clarification point, I really think the software is going to enhance enough the interdepartmental cadence and communication that really has to be explored to deliver that hyper nuance at scale. I don't think the software is going to actually strip out that nuance. I think it's going to allow for that nuance.
Yeah.
Okay. But like, really, like, yeah, sorry, I heard your kind of restatement of, and I just wanted to make sure, like, I'm really like advocating for the software ultimately to become so flexible and so well documented that all the departmental relays that have to happen to assure the product and the level of specificity gets delivered to that client. There's plenty of examples that we've had broach over the last 5 years of just tremendous growth that you really, because every time a product gets out the door and maybe it doesn't have the chocolate flavoring that they wanted for their very unique combination of hormone replacement therapy that is at their very specified milligram strength with their unique active combo, if it forgets like the chocolate flavoring, or if it forgets the very specific base that they like, it's a remake and it's a delay and it's an extra cost. And your software really has to support. I always call them, like, I'm a pharmacist by trade, but when I was working retail pharmacy, prescriptions are tough in and of themselves, right? There's errors that happen in a retail pharmacy because there's 4,000 different products out there. I don't know the exact number from a pharmaceutical manufacturing and how we used to stock them on the Walgreens shelves and how many products are out there on the exact number base, but we have thousands of products. And just like taking these standardized products and getting those recapitulated from what the doctor wants into your PMS, there's challenges there. There's a whole nother level of challenge when you bring in prescription personalization and nuance down to, you've got formulation variances. Within those formulation variances, okay, do you want a gelatin capsule? Do you want a vegetarian capsule? How do you want to pack that out? There's also, and across every formulation, there's infinite variations. And that's why we have 100,000 plus different product SKUs within our PMS right now. And that's our pharmacy management system. So instead of 4,000, we got 100,000 because we've seen doctors write things hundreds of thousands of different ways. And so ultimately, like, we've never stopped on the allowance of variability. At the same point, we have looked for efficiencies and supply chain efficiencies. So I think the evolvement of software in itself and then how that connects to robotics will be a very interesting involvement over the next 3, 5, 10 years.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the clarification there, Patrick. Look, to bring us home, the next 3 to 5 years, what's a big bet that Strive's making to really take healthcare where you guys believe it should be going?
I mean, there's lots of different things that we're doing. We're investing in equipment that allows us to really operate with those efficiencies, whether it's big German Korsch tableting and encapsulation machines, like over to the Natoli lines, right, to awesome sterile robotics. So there's like the lot side of the business with bets that we're making in that direction. There's plays with the software space, whether it's like intermediaries that allow our disparate softwares to talk in higher levels of coherence that enhance that. Yeah, a big issue is just data and transference of data and alignment of data fields to speed up the processing of prescriptions. So we've worked on intermediaries that allow for the efficiencies of how we communicate between the different people that have to participate and come together to really make this ecosystem well-oiled, from patients to the pharmacy to the providers. So we're making bets there. And there's probably bigger bets that are a little bit in-house, Sal, that I don't think I can quite reveal, because I think it's maybe a part of what Strive's doing to ultimately, I think, stand out and hopefully, obviously, grow to, I think, one of the most recognized, well-known, personalized care compounding pharmacies nationally.
That's great, man. Well, you guys are making a lot of investments across the supply chain of what you guys do, and want to recognize the efforts that you and the crew are doing to really do a great job there. Look, Patrick, it's been a pleasure. Really appreciate you joining us. If people want to get in touch with you or the Strive Pharmacy team, how can they do that?
Yeah, best way for me personally, my email is pretty simple, patrick@strivepharmacy.com. After I kick you an email back, we can always schedule a talk if you want. And otherwise, you can reach out to our marketing teams, and our marketing teams do a good job, or even just call our customer care center. Customer care can get you in touch with becoming a provider that works with us, becoming a patient that would like to find a provider that, has a great working relationship with us. Or if you have more technical questions on running a pharmacy or looking for a pharmacy partner, reach out, ask for my name, and I'd be more than happy to get in touch with you guys.
That's outstanding. Thank you for that, Patrick. And folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Beat by Health. So excited to have had Patrick with us on the podcast. Check out the show notes for all the ways to get in touch. You'll find Patrick Schinzel there, Chief Operating Officer at Strive Compounding Pharmacy, and all the ways that he shared to get in touch with him. Thank y'all for tuning in. And Patrick, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure, Sal. Thanks so much.